When do I expect to go for a walk? When we put one foot in front of the other.
I knew he was going to say that. I knew.
Anytime. Very fun. Never know, you have to dig up roots, you have to cut food, anything else. And so I always, even on the river, I actually went to court one time because I got pulled over in Vancouver and I had a couple of knives on me. One of my knives was a buck knife, but it was flipped over. So I just had to release the clasp and it slid into my hand. And of course the other one was an illegal knife. But I'd just come back from fishing. And when I told the judge about my grandfather telling me never to go on the river without a knife, because if you're checking the net and you're by yourself and then all of a sudden you fall over and you get caught up in that net, you got to be able to cut yourself out of there. And so, or even a rope that's caught on something and you get the leg caught, you got to be able to cut that line right away so it doesn't.
So what did the judge say?
He said, see you later, have a good day. Yeah. They didn't give me my knives back, but they did let me go, so yeah. And then this knife here, see how quick that came out? Police officer gave that to me. Isn't that ironic? Like, person that went to court for a life gets a knife given to me by a police officer. That quick release. It's almost as good as a switchblade. So this is it. Looks like this is it. Okay, we're gonna take a walk up the hill. If you can keep an eye on time, so because I'll just keep going. Okay. Yeah. Time is now. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna stop every once in a while because I just finished a cigarette. Just kidding. No, what I wanted to do is ask you guys if you knew what this stuff was. It's spiky, so I don't suggest you do that.
Oregon grape.
Hey?
Oregon grape.
Yes, it is Oregon grape. And I always ask people, do you know why they call it Oregon grape?
Why?
I'm asking you, do you know why?
No.
No, neither do I, because some people have told me it began growing in Oregon. Well, for those that may not know, before British Columbia and Washington State were formed, this was Oregon.
Right.
Up as far as Chiaxsten, which is today known as Britannia. In our language of the Squamish, we call it Chiaxsten. And that's the village of Britannia. So if you go up to Britannia and the art gallery on this side of the train tracks, right beside the steps is a little mile post that says Oregon, mile 0. But what I wanted to share about the Oregon grape was it's got a not too bad of a berry, makes some good jellies. But what I use it for is, I need to find a good thick one. Here's one. What I do is I come to it and you go to the edge of the stalk and you peel with your nail until you see the yellow on there. And then just that 1-inch piece, I'll grab my nail and I'll scrape that yellow bark off. So I just have that little chunk right there. I eat it. And what I'm doing is I'm working on my liver. You know, liver is important for all the other organs. So this is working on my liver. That, what I just took, I do that maybe once every 2 months. If I was to do it all month, every day, my liver would just shut down. What I'm taught about in this environment is the Creator, yes, did give us stuff that are poisonous, but that was for us to learn about other things and to keep other things away from them. but everything is utilized. You know, we utilize stinging nettle. A lot of times people say, stay away from stinging nettle, it's bad, but it's one of the best medicines. We work with Devil's Club. I stopped watching Survivor Man because when he was dropped in the Pacific Northwest, he went 5 days without eating. In the Pacific Northwest. I couldn't believe it. I said, that's it. I'm no longer watching this man anymore. But every time he came over a hill, he would come into Devil's Club. And he would be like, oh, you want to stay away from that? That's bad medicine. It's not good for anything and everything. And it's like, dude, you're putting out the wrong medicine, the wrong information. So I no longer watch him. But yeah, Oregon grape is a good one.
Did I have some?
There's none on there yet. Yes.
Does this grow everywhere? Is this
pretty much. If you look around in the city, a lot of the apartments have big bushes growing in them because they start growing this
stuff.
stuff.
I cut a hole out of this town in my garden where it's all overgrown.
Yeah. But the berries on there, they make a good jelly.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a different variety that's not a new species that's used in gardens.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
One of the other big, I think, are the
Okay.
introduced.
Brian's got something to share here because I want to learn.
Yeah, I think there's an introduced, not native variety of the Oregon grape that gets very large.
That's the bigger stuff. I kind of thought it looked a little different than stuff that grows naturally, because the stuff out here I've never seen grown as big as the stuff you see at apartments. Yeah.
So I have a question.
Yes.
If you take it every day, it's bad for you.
Yeah.
But if you take it
once every couple of months,
is it good for your liver?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm working on my liver
And getting it healthy and keeping it.
And then that in turn looks after everything else.
Right.
Because once your liver goes, that's it for everything else. Starts going slowly, one by one. Everything will start breaking down. And so I continue working on that.
Sounds
liver.
almost like a homeopathic remedy or something, just a little bit, right?
Yeah,
A little bit of the medicine.
Yeah,
that-
microdosing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah, that's what I'm going to say for the rest of it.
Microdosing.
Microdosing.
Dad,
Yes, son.
look at
I was sharing that I take a lot of people up into the mountains, and one day, because a lot of times this is as far as people go, and then they're like, how much further? So one day on Facebook I put out, looking for a goat to come hiking with me. And one of my West Van PD friends, she got a hold of me and she said, yeah, I'll go hiking. So we went up to White Lake in Horseshoe Bay, and she was a goat. She left me behind. She was gone. And I was like, well, when I'm hiking, I like to stop every once in a while. Some hikers are in it for fitness. Boom, 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 they're gone. Me, I'm in it for all this beauty. Because a part of what I'm doing when I'm walking up here, I'm looking in areas, and if I find an area that I would like to camp out in, I figure the ancestors may have looked at that same area. And so I'll spend time walking around there, lifting mosses and everything, but I put the moss back, whatnot, just looking for any evidence of our ancestors of doing things. So, yeah. Plus, there's a cave. The story I shared with you guys on the canoe, I was sharing with them about Stapas. It's a longhouse story down the other end about Quinash and mink and skunk. They invited everybody to the potlatch and ended up taking all their wares with them. But the mink and skunk came out of a cave somewhere up in the mountains here. So that's another thing I keep looking for. So, and the cool thing, I don't know if I told you about Stapas.
Yeah.
When you go down there, you can actually see on the rock looks like a whale's tail sticking out of the rock. So it's pretty cool. Anyway, we're good?
We're good.
We're good. Like this, You look up at places like in between the branch there, yeah, close to the edge of the tree, all that. You look all the way up. Everybody's always looking around. Cougars. Cougars. But a cougar will sit on that ridge still, and then as soon as he sees something, jump down from up there. Gotcha. So whenever you're walking through the forest, don't keep your head down. Don't look this way and that way. Look up as well.
Do you want to see the cougar pouncing on you?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Yeah.
It may seem a little weird, but my ultimate fantasy is to run into a bear, and all I have is my knife.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good win.
That would make me a warrior. I don't know. That's why I need to do that. So, I mean, I'd probably come out pretty scratched up, but as a hunter, I know the places to hit him with my knife where he would be hurting. So.
That would help.
Yeah. But I like to stop at this big beauty. I really wish, though, I don't see any. You guys know licorice root?
Yeah.
Licorice root grows on this type of tree, which is a maple. And what you'll see is not big ferns like this, but little ferns sticking out. You'll see them sticking out. And when you do that, you go to the fern and you go to the base, and then you start pulling apart. And once you pull apart, okay, Brian's gonna climb up there and grab it.
Thank you.
But yeah, you can see up on this branch here. You can see some of the little ferns sticking out. If you go to the root of that, follow the stalk down to the root, and then you can dig along the root. Sometimes the root will go from that patch all the way down here. But I don't grab all of that. I'll just grab what I need. And what it's good for is you can make teas out of it. It's good for your breathing. It's good for sore throats, stuff like that.
I used to give it to my kids when they were teething.
Yeah.
Just the whole root, and they had,
Yeah.
it's a perfect size for them to hold. And the bark is enough to like cut their gums on.
Yeah.
But then it's a natural analgesic too, right?
Yeah. But what I wanted to stop here for is something very important for people outdoors, because one of the things I hate so many times on YouTube, I've seen people suggesting that you make your tent under a fallen tree like that. That's the roots of a tree. But I mean, that tree is old enough. You could get away with it if you had to. I wouldn't even try it. But a tree drops in the forest. Boom. The roots are up. Okay? This tree is dead now. It's going to start drying out. It's going to start getting lighter. And pretty soon the weight of that dirt is going to pull it back up. So it actually, it's going to be sitting there. You're camped underneath it. Tree will dry out. It'll stand right up. When I was logging as a youngin', we went to go and sit underneath a thing like that and have lunch, and our supervisor came over us and gave us what for. Don't ever do that again. And then he told us a story about a man disappearing, and they couldn't find him until finally somebody noticed that a tree had stood up again. And so they chopped it up, got a thing and lifted it up, and unfortunately that man was underneath there. And so the logging companies really started pushing, don't ever sleep or lunch underneath one of those. Sure, it's nice and shady and everything, but it'll take a second and that thing's standing up again. Okay, this is how you become the tree. So, we got lucky and found some fern that's accessible.
How did you get up there?
When I harvest and I take things, you know, a lot of times people tell you, offer tobacco, show me tobacco in my area. We don't do that. That was something that came back to us because of colonization and residential school and potlatch ban. We all started going towards what was still allowed with the indigenous people, which were a lot of Cree and Haida stuff. Cree for their dancing, Haida for their artwork. And so a lot of the indigenous people up and down the country started learning those things. My own family gets mad when I tell them our family was not powwow people. We're Squamish people. We're feasting people. And so that was just something that was allowed by the government, was powwow dancing. And so we did that. So I'm getting way off track. When I do an offering for what I'm doing here, the way I'm taught is when my spirit travels, it's gonna go to everywhere I've been in life to collect itself, to make sure that it's all complete when it's in the spirit world. And so I was taught to give of myself. So I pull the neck hairs off of my head. I'll give thanks to the tree, I'll give thanks to the medicine and everything, and then I'll leave my hair there. So when I travel to the spirit world, I'm coming back to this beautiful place. And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to enjoy and I'm going to reminisce all my beautiful friends and family. And I'm going to enjoy that time. And so I wanted to share that with you. Now that I shared the prayer, I'm going to turn around. You go to the stalk. You follow down to the stalk. Once you get there, you can clear away on the moss. And then you'll feel a stalk. I'm going to leave the ferns on there. Many different cultures have many different ways of warding off any bad energy. So what we do is we take these and we'll face the white part out, either on our front step outside our door or in the front window inside the house. And that way anybody that sends any negative energy towards us, it's going to echo off. That's what else they call these, are echoes.
Can I try?
And as I said, we don't have any tobacco around here. We also don't have any sage around here or sweetgrass. So when it comes to smudging, we used cedar. The branches, we would dry that out and use that for a smudge. But if it was something that couldn't be taken away from yourself doing your self-cleansing, we would go to the Squamish, the medicine person, and they would brush you off with this. That's what they would smudge with, was the conch, and that would take care of more energy stuff than cedar does.
So they burn that?
Yes. Oh. They dry it out and then they'll crumble it up, like a sage, kind of. It almost looks like a sage. And
it's a dried mushroom?
Yeah. Conch. Fungi. Yeah. But you see the white part where she's putting her hand on there? Mm-hmm. If you pull it out, if you break it off, give an offering, you can actually do artwork on there with a pencil or with a stick or something, and everywhere you put a mark, it browns. I have a friend that did a design on there, but there was a little piece of cedar sticking out. So his design was a woman kneeling, weaving a basket out of cedar. So that cedar looked like it was a part of his artwork. But just to let you know, we're just going up here on that bluff right there. So welcome to the overview of Halkett Bay. You are now up on the bluffs on Chiaxsten, overlooking at Chiaxsten. Chiaxsten is also known as Howe Sound in our language. Unfortunately, there's translations that we don't have yet anymore, but we're trying to piece together. We have some teachers that are looking at our language and breaking it down to individual words. Like means something, khlat means something, you know. And so when they mix it up into different areas, it talks about different places, different things. And so our linguistic teams are looking at all of this, trying to piece it together. And they've come together with a few things that they now can identify what certain words mean in our language and why they're used in this context. So. Up and Sequedos. Just want to tell my family how proud I am of you guys and how big my heart feels right now being able to share this time with you guys. That song I composed just almost 30 years ago when I worked with some of our youth and the first time working on a canoe, a dugout canoe, something that I never got a chance to do when I was growing up. And we had 30 youth, and they were working on this canoe and learning culture, songs, and everything. And it made my heart feel glad. I was ever so grateful. Luckily, our master carver, Sisiam, Ray Natoro, was also one of our language speakers. And I went to him and I talked to him. I says, I feel like there needs to be words in here to express how I feel. I said, this song's been coming to me since we've been working on this project. I keep hearing it. And so I finally brought it out. And he said, well, how does it make you feel? And I said, oh, my heart's exploding. I'm like so happy seeing all these beautiful things. And he said, Chen Quenman told me. I said, what does that mean? Roughly translated, I am ever so grateful. Thank you very much. You know, appreciation. And I was like, right on, cool. So I put those words in that song, and I utilize it. Quick skate!
Yeah, I was talking about how I grew up learning that if there's lots of moss, that the air quality is good.
Yeah, yeah. And as you can see, the mosses are kind of dried out right now.
Yeah.
But there's apparently like 137 different mosses around.
Yeah.
We utilized it in different ways.
Yeah.
It was used for diapers and feminine products.
Yeah.
It was used to transport our food in the canoes with the mountain moss, which gets really thick.
Yeah.
We'd lay a bed down and put all the foods that needed to be cooled
Nice.
on that. It would be wet, like the moss would be wet.
Yeah.
And then they would flip another piece of moss over top of the food to sandwich it in between the two wet pieces of moss. And that way it's not getting all messed up in sitting out in the sun.
Did your people use moss bags too for babies? Like they would have, and it might be more of a prairie thing, but they would have the
like
I think it was a cradle board with a sack full of moss for the baby.
Yeah. No, we used more of a basket.
Okay.
And I believe they did put a layer of that underneath. But it was more of an open basket. They weren't strapped in. Yeah. Unless, of course, they were moving somewhere.
Right, yeah.
Then they would cover them up. but it was more of a tight blanket tightened onto them.
Yeah.
Around. Which gate?
They forget what that means.
They forgot that meant let's go.
People know their trees around here?
Nope.
Nope. You know what that is?
She knows all the trees.
Yeah. Who knows all the trees?
My sister.
Oh, really? Oh, I love that. I love when people can identify.
Western red cedar.
Spring Island and
Western red cedar. It's the probably most common.
and the plants.
There's
Yeah.
these ones here, those 3, 4. Those Douglas fir, very common as well.
Sorry, what did you say this was?
That's a Western red cedar.
Western red cedar.
Those ones with the kind of bark with the vertical grooves in them. Those are Douglas fir. This is a hemlock here. This one. These two hemlocks. They have that kind of. Then if you could get farther back, you could see the foliage on the tips are drooping. And these are big leaf maple. The one where we found the licorice root, big leaf maple. The big maple leaves up there, very common.
So the hemlock is the one with the bent tip on top, right?
Yeah.
You know why it's like that? A long time ago, when all these beings were standing before Hakachanik Chesiam with the Creator, waiting for their gift, well, the hemlock kept trying to get in the front to get the best gift. Nope, in the back of the line. So finally, when hemlock did get its gift, that was it. Almost the smallest cone. The only other smaller cone is the cedar, but it comes in clusters.
Right.
Well, when hemlock got this, felt sad. Turned around and walked back into the forest. So, anytime you need to find hemlock, not that you're going to be looking for it, you look at the tops of the trees and you'll see its head is still hanging down because it's sad. And Doug, it does that too, but it's got a bunch of different ones coming out, not just the one head that's bent over.
It's a Douglas fir cone.
Yeah.
And it's got the little animal. You see the tail and the back legs of the animal hiding under the scale.
The little mouse.
There's a story about that too.
It's the little mouse. I don't know the story, otherwise I would share it. But I remember hearing that it was a little mouse. Yeah.